Hey YouTube, so I tried to record this and get it uploaded yesterday, but I ran into a bit of a snafu. It seems as though I maybe wasn't speaking loud enough, and when I exported it into iMovie to edit it and to upload it, I can hear a damn word I was saying, even when I had pushed the volume up to all the way to 100%. If I can talk today. So I thought I would give it a second go today, especially since it was cloudy yesterday. There was absolutely no light to film by. And as you can see, I hope it is nice, bright, and sunny today. I absolutely love it. Okay, so yesterday I had a wait, what day is this? This is Tuesday. So this weekend was really, really touching to me because my mom gave me this. Now, it doesn't look like much, but it is the photocopy of the journal of my grandmother from the last year of her life. She passed away in March of 1993 from breast cancer, as well as her recipes. All the recipes she had in her recipe box, which you can't get much more heirloom than recipes, and it's so touching to me. I'm going to cherish this always. In fact, no one told me this at the time, but my grandmother wrote about how special I was. On the 11th of January in 1993, she wrote, "Wade, you're one of our special kids and very much loved. The rest of you," that just sounds like grandma. The rest of you, um, she singled me out. I always thought that I had a special relationship with my grandmother. There we are in on Thanksgiving of 1980. My brother hadn't even been born yet. He was still a couple years away. We just looked like we're up to no good. And that is the last photo that was taken with me and Grandma in '93, I believe, that Christmas. And that's my little brother next to her. But today, I wanted to speak about organizing one's grimoire. As you can see, this is just that blank sketchbook I bought at Michael's the other day. Um, Although I did ask them if they carried any larger sketchbooks because it's a rather it's only like 200 pages long, 220 pages, and I was hoping for one that is at least three times as thick because when you've been practicing for as long as I have, 20 some years, you have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience, and that takes up quite a bit of room, no matter how small or big a book is. Um, so I still plan to turn this into another grimoire, probably a more concise grimoire to um, use in a future giveaway. In fact, as I was thinking over the over the past few days, I one of the things I definitely plan to include in this grimoire, as well as my own, are satin ribbons, and I'll probably include one corresponding to the color of each element, as well as maybe a black ribbon and a white ribbon. But something I've never really seen emphasized before are the use of ribbons that are the bookmarks in a grimoire or a book of shadows as a spell unto itself. That you can use them in knot or cord magic, and you can use them to not only enhance the magic of the book itself, but the book also has such a magic that that the more the book is used, the more energy is put into the book. It also augments the spell of the chord itself. So that is definitely something that I'm going to be putting in this book. I even had an idea for another Book of Shadows that I might even sell or do another giveaway for. And that one's going to deal exclusively with hearthwitchery or kitchen magic and cooking with intent. I am going to be looking for a nice calico print fabric for that, and some nice, very earthy toned ribbons. But I also want to get into how I plan to organize my personal grimoire. And as I was rummaging downstairs for my copy of Robert Graves' The White Goddess, I came across an old book of mine that I have cherished for a long time. That is Your Book of Shadows, How to Write Your Own Magic Spells by Patricia Telesco. And if you don't have this book, I personally do recommend it, especially as an idea generator. As not so much a blueprint, but something inspirational to get you to think about how you might organize your own grimoire. This book is out of print. In fact, when I wanted to buy it originally from Magus Books, who are in Minnesota, they're the store that I used to most often buy my occult literature from back in the day, before at least before I had the internet. They had told me that it was out of print and that the publisher had gone under or was bought by some other publisher or something. Anyway, the book was out of print, and I just happened to get in touch with Pat on online on her Facebook on her on her Yahoo group, and she graciously sent me a copy, which I paid for, of course, and she even inscribed it for me, which is awesome. It's been years since I've gone through this book, and there are even some things that have been jumping out at me that I might end up describing or devoting a specific section to in my own room. Now, the vast majority of this book does deal with things such as spellcrafting, magical correspondences, all in a very organized, very systematic way. You are free to use it from the book itself, and you can even add it to your own Book of Shadows or Grimoire. However, the book also discusses a lot of really, really interesting topics such as making homemade paper, blessing and energizing your book. I even wrote uh, some partial lines to my own book blessing, such as attend these words by magic's might, and let's see. Oh, after each chapter, there's also sort of a blank page where you can also write your own notes. There is visualization, which I marked out, not to take what she's written, but to remind me that it's something that I want to talk about in my own grimoire, because it's something that a lot of witches and pagans don't understand well. Um, they seem to be under the impression that visualization means that you have to see what you are visualizing with your eyes closed as clearly and as realistically as if you were to if you were looking at it with opened eyes, and that's not quite the case. She also includes a list of really interesting ways of using your book, such as including notables and quotables, lecture and lesson notes, which is always important if you're studying with someone. Dream diary, networking. That would be really a really interesting section in a book. You could include sort of a spider web motif with people's names and contact information sporadically placed around it, as well as insights and introspections, magical commitments and goals, personal magic, i.e., successes and failures. Um, and there's this really great afterword in this book. Know yourself and your magical art and live accordingly. Balance, balance, vision, and personalization are three keys to a fulfilling life and powerful magic. There is no right way or wrong way to achieve enlightenment. Never stop learning or growing. Internalize and apply your spiritual magical knowledge every day. So it's really really good book. If you've never heard of it, I strongly recommend it. But if you want something much more academic, I would also recommend Owen Davies' book Grimoires: A History of Magic Books, which was published by Oxford in 2009. Now that being said, I I would be remiss if I did not advise anyone who does read his books to accept what he says with a very generous dash of salt, because he is or he was a student of Professor Ronald Hutton, and he does follow Ronald Hutton's teachings rather dogmatically. In fact, he is, like Professor Hutton, extremely conservative in his viewpoints and his perspectives. So um, that's really what you'll find by reading his books, that he is extremely conservative as a result. But there are a bunch of other books from my library that I wanted to sort of highlight as books that would offer inspiration that I would include within my own Book of Shadows or my grimoire. And that, of course, would be these first five books here. First and foremost would be It Fetches a Grimoire of Shadows, which is actually a really good book. All of these books are really good. If you've never read them, I highly recommend that you add them to your personal library. Um, this book could be used as a standard Book of Shadows in and of itself, and you would pretty much only be adding your own spells to it, really. But it includes some things that I would be remiss to forget to add to my own, such as information on ritual garments. Let's see, it has some great information on magical circles, magical theory, the astral plane, magical alphabets, training time, music for rituals. That's something that no one should forget. And there is another book that Ed wrote, sort of anonymously, but in the years since he wrote it, it was picked up by Herman Slater, who claimed authorship for it for a while until Ed sued Herman, and now Herman is listed as the editor of the book. And it is a book of pagan rituals. Um, it's considered sort of outer court training material for witches and pagans. And again, it's a classic. It's one I highly recommend. It's great for inspiring rituals, as is the successor, Pagan Rituals 3, Outer Court Training Coven, edited and introduced by Herman Slater. Again, it's got great information on magic rites, blessing the wine, blessing the cakes, arranging an altar, um, magical alphabets. It's another phenomenal book. Again, as is this one, another book by Ed Fitch. It's Magical Rites from the Crystal Well, and I was flipping through this the other day, and I almost started crying because there's a really lovely ceremony in here called Rite of Release, which is for someone's pet, If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I had a dog who died almost a year ago this month, and I still miss her every day. It's so lonely here without her. This book, you have seen me harp on about this book for almost a year, I'm sure, but this book I wish had been printed years ago because there is just so much amazing information in it um, that I would absolutely reflect upon in writing my own grimoire. It has information that I've only seen in practice. I've never actually seen it published before, such as when you're casting a circle and you start at the east, you go from east to south to west to north. And you don't stop at the north. You keep going back around to the east and you salute that quarter and then you return to the altar. I have seen that in many witches' rituals that have been um, photographed and and videoed, such as around the Halloween season when the journalists have to send out their guys to see what we witches are up to. Of course, there is Janet and Stuart Forrest's classic, The Witch's Way, and Eight Sabbaths for Witches, two of my favorite books. In fact, like Janet and Stuart, who start their Sabbath with Imbolc, I would also probably start my listening of the Sabbath also in at Imbolc because it's a time of birth and renewal, whereas Samhain is really a time of death and repose. And as a wheel, it sort of interlocks and one flowing back into the other. So it makes more sense to start with the birthing aspect of the wheel of the year rather than the death or New Year aspect. This is also a fabulous book, Truth or Dare by Starhawk. It contains a lot of really great philosophical statements that are absolutely worth paraphrasing and sort of talking at length about. We also have Mastering Witchcraft by Paul Hewson, another classic. I really wish I had the hardback to this because I love my vintage hardbacks. I also have Power of the Witch by Laurie Cabot, another not just classic but a game changer in terms of the craft. If you've never read that book, I strongly recommend it. In fact, this book is so meaningful to me personally that I went out and bought a hardback cover of it, so just so that I could have a hardback cover rather than my soft cover books, which were getting quite worn out. And of course, her books celebrate the earth, and I really like how she has outlined her sabbatons in this book, and I would probably end up outlining my own traditions in a very similar way. For example, she gives the preparations for the Sabbath, what goes on the altar, of that nature, as well as what to wear. Granted, I would probably not, say what to wear in my own grimoire. I would probably use the words such as garments, because I do believe in wearing sort of traditional robes during a Sabbath ritual. And in fact, under preparations at in bulk, I would probably go on about the color of the altar cloth and that we use our my collection of milk glass as the altar um, accoutrement of in bulk. The candlesticks and the bottles for my moon potion and I have a banana boat that I use to hold the candles I have made that season for blessing for the year to come. In fact, after that section dealing with invoke, I would probably include a section also on how to make candles because I've been making my own candles for many years, and I think it's something worth passing along heirloom style. And I would also I would also pass along probably the recipes that have been creating or making and developing over the years for each Sabbath, because nothing is more heirloom than a cookbook. And when you flip through a cookbook that someone has handed down to you, then you just think about that person who created it, and all those wonderful memories that you have had eating that wonderful food. A great book with some really great insights in there, especially on channeling information, which I would absolutely include as what I this book, An ABC of Witchcraft, for sort of explaining the history, the magic, and the meaning behind some of the altar tools that are mentioned rather extensively in the Farrar's literature. Now, this book I would recommend as a companion, a direct companion to Laura Cabot's book, Power of the Witch, and that is Vivian Crowley's Wicca, the Old Religion in the New Age. It has some great information in there, especially on constructing the hive mind of the coven. And another fabulous oldie but goodie is Dr. Leo Louis Martello's Witchcraft, the Old Religion. It has some great material in there, worth reflecting upon, and maybe even um, paraphrasing or opening in your own words and mentioning it within the context of one's own Book of Shadows or Grimoire. I really hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe. Yeah, I think I will be starting a series, and as I go on, I will give you sort of a walkthrough of my Grimoire or Book of Shadows as I create it. I'm sort of in the process of learning some different artistic techniques that I absolutely want to use with this. One of those includes buying a series of special pens and learning the technique of, I believe it's called brush pen lettering. I'll have to look that up again, because I really want my penmanship to really stand out in my grimoire, because I want it to be extremely legible, but I also want it to be pretty. I want it to be a work of art in and of itself. So after I get it filled, I'm going to cover it in fabric using some bookbinding glue, as well as finding some nice marbled paper to put on the inside covers. And I think on the very last page, I'm probably just going to write something like marry me, marry part, and maybe marry me again, so mote it be. Just something simple to sort of close it out. So in that line, my witches, keep calm and witch on. Oh my God! Not every witch believes in the threefold law. How astonishing is that? But in fact, not everyone does believe in the threefold law, even doing variant faith.